after that first fundraiser, which went over the course of 2007 and 8.
So your intention was to modernize with electricity and running water by keeping in mind their culture and not hurting their culture.
Well, that's right. And how this developed from that initial project of helping with the school is Niru and I decided that we would together try to help the village raise its standard of living. But we agreed that we would follow certain principles in this effort. And the principles were, first of all, we would offer nothing to the village that the villagers did not ask for. So the initiative for the school came from the village. And each project we've done since then, the village asked Niru to ask me for help. And so then the second principle was that whatever we did for the village, the villagers would have to provide all of the labor at no cost. So the villagers built the school. They built the addition. The teachers are from the village. And so the third principle was that the village would then, as a community, would own and operate the system that we would build. And the last principle was that a recognition that the village has no capital and no means of raising capital itself because it's made up of subsistence farmers. They grow what they eat, and they very rarely grow enough to even sell anything at market. So they just don't have a means of raising capital, and they lack expertise in areas. So we would provide capital and we would provide expertise, but beyond that, the villagers would have to maintain and run the system. So the school has a school board, and it has the teachers. And the next thing the villagers asked for was electricity. So we raised the money to buy the materials. We hired an engineer to supervise the construction, and the villagers built their own little hydroelectric plant. And then the villagers wanted something, so they cook and heat in open fire pits in the middle of their homes. And so pulmonary disease, cataracts, problems associated with inhaling smoke all the time are rampant. And so we bought materials to construct what are called smokeless stoves, but they're not smokeless. They're like the old 19th century potbelly stoves with a pipe that pipes the smoke out of the house. So we bought the materials, the villagers assembled them, and built them into their homes. And we've had smaller projects to raise money to purchase materials for the school, workbooks, textbooks, that kind of thing, because they had no materials whatsoever. They had a chalkboard with no chalk. All their materials were handmade by the teachers, so now they have workbooks, textbooks. And we've just finished a fundraising project for a water system. So over the course of this winter, after we transfer the money, they'll purchase pipes, concrete, hose, and they'll construct a system of pipes and cisterns and hoses from the stream into the village, so that there will be a serious of hoses within the village that the villagers can draw water from. So, and they'll build it themselves, and they'll have a board or committee which will be in charge of maintenance of the water system, just like they have for the hydroelectric system.
So this is ongoing work right now. This is like 2012, and the water project is undergoing this year.
Yeah, this year we raised the money for it, which was $29,000, and the money will be sent over to the Basa Village Foundation NGO, which Nehru is chairman of in Kathmandu. It'll be sent from the Basa Village Foundation USA, which I'm president of here in the U.S., and then Nehru's foundation will distribute the funds as they purchase the parts, and there's an engineer that we've hired who's a Nepali engineer who will be in charge of construction. We had a young guy who's a water engineer who volunteered to go over and do the survey, and he was over there in May, or I'm sorry, he was just over there. Was over there in September, October, and did the survey, worked with the local engineer and checked everything out and signed off on it. And so he had an extraordinary experience because he was by himself living in the village for a week, and his reaction was the same as mine. It's been really transformative, and then over the course of the winter, the villagers will build the water system.
What a project! And Jeff, how has this impacted your life back home? You have a family, correct?
Yeah, I'm married, and I have two sons, both of whom are grown. They graduated from college last year. So the family seems much diminished since both of our boys are gone, and so it's my wife, me, and our cat.
And was your wife on board from the very beginning?
Yeah, it's actually her fault. I blame it all on her.
Okay, because it's easy to do that. Just give it to her.
Yeah, isn't that what spouses are for?
So do explain. What happened?
Well, I had turned 40, and in her view was manifesting midlife crisis symptoms. I already had a Harley motorcycle and a convertible. I was not going to chase my secretary around the office and run off with her because she's 7 years older than me and had been my secretary for 20 years. So my wife thought a better option was to do something adventurous and interesting. And one day I came home from the office in my grumpy midlife crisis mode, and she slapped a brochure down on the table in front of me and said, "Why don't you go do this?" And it was a brochure about trekking in Nepal. Mm-hmm. So she was basically saying, go take a hike all the way on the other side of the world. So,
yeah, I can see that. Just don't go take a walk around the block. We'll see you later, alligator. Okay.
Right. Yeah, it was her idea. So that was the first time I went to Nepal back in '95, and that's, as I mentioned, a friend and I went over and we trekked with a group the Everest Base Camp Trail, and that started it all.
You've come up with a term that's called Philanthro-Trekking.
Philanthro-Trekking, yes.
And what is that? It's what you're explaining to us, to taking interested persons and bringing them over there to give them an experience, and in turn, they give of themselves during this project or during this trekking.
Yeah, the idea is philanthro, meaning love of humanity, combined with trekking. So we raise money to do philanthropic projects, but we also experience the local culture, interact with the people of Nepal, both in Kathmandu and up in the mountains, and we learn about them, they learn about us, so there's a cultural exchange, and we transfer capital to them, which they have so little of, so that they can improve their lives. So, Philanthro-Trekking.
And you're still organizing these trips today?
Yeah, in fact, I'm currently working on one for May, which will primarily involve college students. This is a new one for me. A local university in Indianapolis, some of the students had read some of my books and contacted me about going to Nepal and doing some kind of project work, and so the university and I are in discussions about creating a class and then leading a group of students, and also there will be some members of our foundation that would go with us. Trek to Basa, try to come up with something that the students can do with the villagers, like help with English classes, computer literacy course. If the water project isn't completed by then, pick up shovels and help build the water system. But have more of an in-depth humanitarian, philanthropic experience with the village, and then we'll go off and climb a little mountain and trek around in the Basa area, and also have some time to experience the culture of the Kathmandu Valley. So that's in the works, and I hope that comes to fruition in May.
And how long does this project last? How long does the expedition last?
This one would be about 3 weeks. So we'd spend several days in Kathmandu and hike to Basa and be in Basa for about 5 days, and then have about another 5 to 7 days to do some more trekking and to hike up this little mountain and look at the wonderful vistas, be able to see Mount Everest and all the big high peaks, because in Nepal, 8 of the 10 highest mountains in the world are all in the Nepal Himalaya range.
Oh, I could just imagine how small you feel, how little you feel in compared to the power of nature.
Yeah, well, I'm 6 foot tall, but standing beside a 20,000 or 25,000 or Mount Everest 29,000 foot mountain, 6 feet doesn't seem very big.
No, it puts you to skill.
Yes.
Okay, so Jeff, if one of my listeners are listening to you, and their heart is beating in their chest, and they say, by golly, I would sure like to do something like that, is there a place for this person to contact or to contact you?
Yeah, the first thing they should do would be to go to my website, because, and there's a link to my email on the website. And the website is www.jeffrey, Rasley, Rasley.com, and it has links to a number of other sites. It has a link to the Basa Village Foundation site. It has a link to the Adventure Geo Trek site, and it provides photographs and narratives about different expeditions and projects that the foundation is working on. And like I said, a link to my email, which is jrasley@juno.com. And if anyone is so moved to want to get involved with the foundation or join one of our trekking groups